Welcome back, everybody. As we mentioned earlier on, there is much concern over a spike in child suicides. The National Centre for Child Protection reveals that more and more high school learners are attempting to take their lives. According to the organization, about 10 children commit suicide every single day. Some of them are as young as 6 years old. More than 40 suicides have been recorded in Gauteng schools alone since the beginning of the year. But what really informs this unfortunate trend? To discuss this issue further, we joined virtually by the CEO of the National Centre for Child Protection, Danie van Loggerenberg. About 10 children commit suicide in a day here in South Africa, we are told. A very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to have this discussion.
Now, Danie, although suicide can affect both young and old, many experts believe that suicide is actually more prevalent among young people. Why is that so?
Well, I think quite clear, it's the younger the person, the less they understand what's going on around them. So, for example, when we had the pandemic, we as grown-ups understood it was an unknown future for us as well. So some of the information that we received could change in short periods of time. While a child doesn't understand that, the same thing happens when, for example, unemployment. When I was a youngster, I didn't know about unemployment. It wasn't a discussion that was had with me by grown-ups. But due to social media, the children know so much more about things. So I'm sitting in a classroom, I'm already worried, I get a test back, it's 40%, the person next to me has an 80%, and I'm thinking to myself, what's my future? What's my future holding? My parents are struggling to survive, they're just feeding me. How am I going to survive this entire process of becoming a grown-up? And in that process, they think about things that they don't understand. An uncertain future, and they don't have somewhere to go to. Who do they speak to? Do they have that relationship with their parents? Are their parents putting in extra hours to put food on the table? So where are those discussions taking place, and what information are reaching our children? And if that information that reaches our children is not from their own parents, it's going to be from a complete stranger on the internet, on social media and so forth. And that is obviously very, very worrying.
And the children, Danie, might have, access to so many platforms about such information, but then one wonders if they truly appreciate the implications of their actions. Do they really know that this has a long-term or a permanent effect, what they are doing?
Well, I've been going to schools for the last 13 years, and the honest answer to that is not at all. So they do not realize that every single time they do something, there is a direct consequence. So if I call somebody, for example, with the social media, in the old days we spoke about bullying. Today you body shame someone on a cell phone, on a WhatsApp group. So they do not realize the consequences. So one of the things that we do when we do speak to them is exactly that. This is what you've done, this is the after effect, because they have absolutely no idea that their spoken word, their typed word has a long-term consequence and influence.
But the truth is that so many schools in South Africa do not necessarily have any program that is aimed at preventing suicide, and teachers, I suppose, are not even trained to deal with learners with suicidal thoughts. How do we address this?
So you've said it so perfectly. So that is one of the major concerns, and that does sound and should be, according to what we're working on, the solution is to make sure that every single school has a qualified person where children can go and speak to about these things. Like I said earlier, not all children have that relationship with their parents. So that is 100%. So schools need to come to the party, we need to sit down, and we need to make sure that there's a person at school that can do that, that's dedicated only to this. Not a teacher that also gives maths and also gives history, nothing against the teacher. But they don't specialize. I always tell the kids at school, I don't go to a history teacher for a maths problem. And that's the same thing here. We need to have a dedicated person. The kids should know this person is qualified, this person is ready to listen and can give me advice and the tools to cope with the things that I struggle with.
And why are suicide rates in South Africa generally highest among boys?
Well, I'm going to say this as honestly as I can. Yeah. I think the reason for that is that boys are often neglected. So when we have conversations, most conversations we have with the girls, if it comes to GBV, because GBV actually does not choose a gender. GBV, one gender against another gender, but that doesn't say boy, girl, man, woman. And we always neglect the boys. So we tell the girls, if this happens, do this. If this happens, do this. Be careful for this. If he looks like this, if he does that, learn to say no, etc. But what conversations are we having with our boys? Then we have a fatherlessness problem in South Africa. So a lot of our boys learn how to be a man from the words of a mom. And I'm not dissing moms. Moms are amazing. But who teaches them to shave? Who teaches them to have respect? So those kind of conversations need to take place. So we have positive role models. There are amazing organizations out there that do exactly that. They have positive male role models that teaches boys certain things. And we need to make sure that all the schools, everybody knows about those positive role models. Because these boys, it just becomes too much. Before you're 16, you've heard about 100 times how bad you are, how bad you're going to be, don't drive, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. But who's ever gone to boys and said, let's look at the positive side of this. Take the lead, be positive. Let's look on how we can build together.
You made a good point there about, boys being told that to be a man at a very, very young age. And the question is, are they capacitated enough to take on such a huge responsibility, mentally at least? And why is it in the best interest of our country to have learners who are mentally strong to withstand challenges such as poverty, unemployment, inequality, crime, and many other social ills in society?
Well, let's just add on to what you've just said, and what you've made an amazing point is, let's use load shedding, for example.
Yeah.
So I'm in a home. Tomorrow it's exam time. All of a sudden that message comes through. Eskom has moved from stage 1 load shedding to stage 6 load shedding. So I've gone from having time this evening to study to have a 4-hour block without studying. So all those things, poverty, all of those add to it. So you're being told you must be a man, you must provide for your family, etc., etc., etc. But nobody helps you with that road to there. We've got, and you said it, single moms that tell their 11-year-old boy, you're now the man of the house. They're not ready for that. It's not a conversation we should have with an 11-year-old. Yeah. Because none of us were ready at 11 years old. At 11 years old, you're still a young man. And that's so important that we have those positive role models, but to have those positive males that are built up. But what happens? Currently, we build up a male role model. 6 months down the line, all the headlines, male being caught with women underage, for example. And that just breaks down. And we need to make sure that that doesn't happen.
And another issue, Danie, that is seemingly being ignored is the relationship or the bond between teachers and children. Because you and I know that our children spend most time at school, and they have a very strong bond with the teachers because of the amount of time that they spend. Because after school, it's only TV, they do their homework, and then off to bed. So they spend as little time as possible with the parents. So one of the biggest challenges, I suppose, faced by the education authorities is that poor communication between parents and teachers, particularly in townships and rural schools. How do we address this challenge?
Oh, again, very good point that you make. So we need to address this by having open, frank conversations. So one of the things that we also do is we do visit schools, we do training with teachers, but we also have conversations with parents. And one of the sad realities of those conversations is that it feels like 3 separate groups. We have parents upset with teachers, we've got teachers upset with children, and so the loop continues. So we need to have open conversations where teachers and parents can have that conversation to say, listen, I as a parent, I'm struggling. Please assist, because you're 100% correct that a lot of children build an attachment with a teacher because that teacher is part of their life 8 hours a day. And those teachers see their children and they also see the changes. So the teacher would be the first point of contact to say, listen, your child has gone from very happy and very friendly to all of a sudden withdrawn. I'm not sure what the reason is. It could be bullying, it could be things at home, but mom, dad, I see this is happening. Can we have a conversation? And then have that honest conversation back to say, we've seen the same at home, or you know what, at home we haven't seen a change. Because that means that child is struggling with something on their own and not having a discussion with anyone.
Right.
And that is suicidal thoughts, self-harming comes in. I mean, we've seen children as young as 7, 8, 9 years old showing their arms. And I could count 20 to 30 marks on one arm.
Danie, unfortunately, we are out of time. We need to take news, but we definitely need to have a follow-up conversation of this very, very important discussion. Thank you so much for joining us and for taking the time to be with us this morning.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. That was Danie van Loggerenberg, the CEO of the National Center for Child Protection, speaking to us about the spike in child-related suicides.